The rain arrived before sunset and settled over Birchwood Estates like a grey curtain. Water slid across freshly paved driveways and trimmed lawns, turning the neighborhood into a picture of quiet prosperity. Most residents watched from warm living rooms, confident that nothing unexpected ever happened on their street. Maya Carter stepped out of her aging sedan carrying a bag of groceries and a folder of legal documents. At 41, she had spent years working overnight maintenance shifts at a large hospital in Chicago. Her dark blue work jacket was still damp from the storm. The small brick house in front of her had belonged to her late Aunt Evelyn Carter, a retired nurse who had lived there for more than 3 decades. After months of probate paperwork, Maya had finally received temporary ownership approval and the keys. She had barely reached the front walk when a police cruiser rolled to the curb. Officer Daniel Mercer stepped out slowly, adjusting his rain-soaked uniform. His expression carried the confidence of a man accustomed to being obeyed. Across the street, Richard Whitaker emerged from a large colonial-style home, holding a cup of coffee beneath a covered porch. "Can I help you?" Maya asked. Mercer looked her over before speaking. "Several residents reported suspicious activity," he said, "someone entering a vacant property." "I live here," Maya replied. "My aunt left me this house." Whitaker crossed the street with measured steps. He was president of the Homeowners Association, a successful real estate developer, and one of the most influential men in Birchwood Estates. "Officer," Whitaker said calmly, "I simply wanted to protect the neighborhood. These days you can never be too careful." Maya felt the judgment before another word was spoken. Whitaker's eyes moved from her hospital uniform to her older vehicle and then to the house behind her. "I have paperwork inside," Maya said. "Then perhaps you should retrieve it," Whitaker answered. She entered the house and returned moments later carrying a folder containing temporary deed records and county filings. Rain dotted the pages as she handed them over. Mercer barely glanced at the documents. "These don't look official," he said. "They came directly from the county office." But Whitaker gave a small smile. "Property ownership can be complicated," he said. "Some people misunderstand legal processes." The words sounded polite, but the meaning struck hard. Neighbors watched from windows and covered porches. No one spoke. Maya stood alone in the rain while Mercer folded the papers carelessly and handed them back. "We'll be keeping an eye on things," he said. Whitaker nodded in agreement. "Birchwood has standards," he added. "People work very hard to maintain them." The storm seemed colder after that. Maya gathered her groceries and stepped onto the porch. Before entering, she looked back toward the street. Mercer and Whitaker were already speaking comfortably together, sharing a laugh that carried through the rain. Something about the exchange unsettled her. Inside the house, she locked the door and leaned against it. The room still smelled faintly of her aunt's perfume and old books. Family photographs covered the walls. Memories lived in every corner. Maya placed the damp documents on the kitchen table and stared through the window toward Whitaker's house. Most people would have dismissed the encounter as simple prejudice or arrogance, but her instincts told her something else was happening. As thunder rolled across the neighborhood, Maya noticed a folded envelope sticking halfway through the mail slot. She opened it and found a single typed sentence: "Sell the house before you learn why everyone else already tried." For the first time that evening, genuine fear touched her heart. Maya Carter barely slept that night. Rain tapped against the windows while the anonymous note sat on the kitchen table beside her ownership documents. Every time she looked at it, the words felt heavier. "Sell the house before you learn why everyone else already tried." The message made no sense. Her aunt had never mentioned anyone trying to buy the property repeatedly. Yet something about the warning felt personal rather than random. At dawn, Birchwood Estates looked peaceful again. Sprinklers clicked across emerald lawns. American flags hung from white porch columns. Expensive SUVs lined driveways. The neighborhood appeared exactly as it wanted outsiders to see it. Maya stood at the kitchen sink with a cup of coffee, staring at a framed photograph of Aunt Evelyn. Evelyn Carter had spent 36 years as a nurse at St. Agnes Medical Center. She had been respected by patients, doctors, and co-workers alike. She never wasted words and rarely complained. But Maya suddenly realized something strange. Evelyn had never spoken warmly about the Homeowners Association. The memory surfaced unexpectedly. Pretty houses don't always mean good neighbors, Evelyn had once told her. At the time, Maya thought it was harmless frustration. Now she wondered if it had been a warning. A knock interrupted her thoughts. She opened the door to find a woman in her late 60s standing on the porch. "You must be Maya," the woman said. She wore a yellow raincoat and carried a covered casserole dish. "I'm Ruth Bennett. I worked with your aunt for years." Relief crossed Maya's face. "Please come in." Ruth stepped inside and immediately looked around the house. "Feels strange without Evelyn," she said quietly. For several minutes they spoke about hospital memories and old stories, then Ruth's expression changed. "Richard Whitaker already came by, didn't he?" Maya nodded. "Yesterday, with a police officer." Ruth sighed heavily. "Of course he did." The response caught Maya's attention. "You expected that?" Ruth hesitated. "Your aunt refused to sell this house 3 different times." Maya froze. "What?" "Whitaker made offers over the years, big offers, much higher than market value. Evelyn turned him down every single time." "Why would he want it so badly?" Ruth looked toward the front window. "That's the question nobody ever answered." Silence filled the room. Then Ruth reached into her purse. She removed an old brass key attached to a faded tag. "Your aunt gave me this 6 years ago." Maya stared at it. "What is it?" "Storage unit outside town. She told me to give it to someone I trusted if anything happened to her." "Did she say what was inside?" "No." Ruth paused, but she looked worried when she handed it over. A chill moved through Maya, despite the warmth of the kitchen. Before leaving, Ruth stopped at the door. "Be careful," she said. "Of Whitaker. Of everyone who smiles when he's around." After she left, Maya examined the key. Storage Unit 42, Route 17 self-storage. She photographed it and placed it beside the anonymous note. Minutes later, another knock sounded. This time it was not friendly. A woman wearing a cream-colored cardigan stood outside holding a clipboard. "Patricia Holloway," she announced. "Birchwood Estates Homeowners Association." Without waiting for permission, she handed Maya a packet. "Official notice of review." Maya opened it. The document listed complaints regarding vehicle appearance, property maintenance, residency verification, and community standards. The fines totaled nearly $800. "You've been here less than 24 hours, Maya said. Patricia shrugged. "Standards matter. My grass isn't even overgrown. The board will determine compliance." As Patricia walked away, Maya noticed something unusual. At the far end of the street, Richard Whitaker stood beside a black SUV. He wasn't speaking. He was simply watching. The moment Patricia reached him, he took the clipboard and reviewed the paperwork himself. Then he looked directly toward Maya's house. Even from a distance, his smile felt like a challenge. For the first time, Maya realized this wasn't about a neighborhood disagreement. Someone wanted her gone. And judging by the storage key hidden in her pocket, Aunt Evelyn had known exactly why. The drive to Route 17 took 30 minutes. Maya Carter left Birchwood Estates shortly after lunch, carrying the brass key, the anonymous note, and a growing sense that her aunt had spent years protecting something important. The storage facility sat between a highway truck stop and an abandoned feed store. A faded American flag snapped in the wind above the office. Nothing about the place seemed remarkable. That made Maya even more suspicious. People rarely hide ordinary things in extraordinary ways. Unit 42 stood near the back fence. The brass key slid into the lock with surprising ease. Maya took a breath and pulled the metal door upward. The hinges groaned loudly. Dust floated through narrow beams of sunlight. Inside were old chairs, several cardboard boxes, holiday decorations, and a gray metal filing cabinet. At first glance, the contents looked completely harmless. Then Maya noticed that the filing cabinet was newer than everything else. Far newer. She walked directly toward it. The first drawer contained property tax records dating back 20 years. The second held correspondence from the Birchwood Estates Homeowners Association. The third drawer was locked. Maya searched until she found a small key taped beneath the cabinet. Her aunt had hidden it there deliberately. The lock clicked open. Inside sat a thick black binder. Across the front, written in Evelyn Carter's careful handwriting, were 4 words: Birchwood Development Project. Maya's pulse quickened. She opened it. The first pages contained maps. Dozens of maps, road layouts, property surveys, zoning proposals, construction estimates. As she turned pages, a pattern emerged. A proposed access road would connect Birchwood Estates to a planned commercial development worth millions of dollars. The route crossed several private parcels. One parcel stood directly in the middle, Aunt Evelyn's property. Maya stared at the map. Without that house, the project moved forward easily. With it, everything stalled. Suddenly, Whitaker's obsession made sense. He never wanted the house. He wanted the land beneath it. Maya continued reading. Purchase offers, meeting notes, emails, engineering reports. Then she found something worse. A printed message from 5 years earlier. From Richard Whitaker to George Talbot Construction. Subject: Property Acquisition Strategy. The message was brief. If voluntary purchase fails, alternative pressure methods may be necessary. Community enforcement remains an effective option. Maya read the sentence twice. Her stomach tightened. Alternative pressure methods. Community enforcement. The language sounded professional. The meaning sounded dangerous. At the back of the binder, she discovered a sealed envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. The date was only 6 months old. Dear Maya, if you are reading this, something has happened to me. Do not assume the people around this neighborhood are what they appear to be. Some are kind, some are frightened. A few are willing to do anything for money. Richard Whitaker wants this property because it blocks his project. He believes everyone has a price. I spent years proving him wrong. If he comes after you, remember one thing. The truth is buried in relationships, not documents. Follow the people, not the paperwork. Love, Aunt Evelyn. Maya lowered the letter slowly. The room felt smaller, much smaller. Her aunt had anticipated everything. She had expected pressure. She had expected manipulation. She had even expected Whitaker to continue after her death. A vehicle suddenly entered the storage facility. Maya froze. Tires crunched against gravel outside. The engine stopped. Silence followed. Then footsteps. Heavy footsteps, moving closer. Maya carefully lowered the storage door halfway and peered through the opening. A dark blue pickup truck had parked 2 rows away. The driver's door opened. Officer Daniel Mercer stepped out. He wasn't wearing a uniform. Yet he walked directly toward Unit 42, like a man who already knew exactly where she would be. Maya's heartbeat accelerated. She slipped the binder into a canvas bag and stepped back into the shadows. Mercer's boots echoed through the corridor. Then his voice arrived. "Miss Carter," he called. The sound was almost cheerful. "Funny place to spend an afternoon." Maya looked down at the binder, then back toward the doorway. For the first time since arriving in Birchwood Estates, she understood that Whitaker's influence extended much farther than neighborhood meetings and HOA notices. Someone had followed her, and someone was worried about what she might find. Officer Daniel Mercer stopped outside Unit 42 and rested one hand on the partially raised storage door. For several seconds, neither he nor Maya spoke. The silence felt deliberate, like a contest, like 2 people measuring how much the other already knew. Finally, Mercer smiled. "Mind if I come in?" "Yes," Maya answered. The smile faded slightly. "That's not very neighborly." "We're not neighbors." Mercer glanced around the storage unit. "Interesting place to spend your afternoon." Interesting place for an off-duty police officer to visit. His eyes narrowed. The answer surprised him. "I was in the area," he said, "and somehow ended up at my storage unit." Mercer laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You ask a lot of questions." "My aunt taught me to pay attention." For a brief moment, something flashed across his face. Recognition, then it disappeared. "Your aunt caused problems," he said. Maya felt her pulse quicken. Problems for who? People trying to improve the community. There it was, the first honest statement he had made. Mercer's gaze shifted toward the canvas bag beside Maya. "Find anything interesting?" "Family records." "You should be careful with old paperwork. Sometimes people misunderstand what they're reading." Maya folded her arms. "Are you warning me?" "I'm advising you." He took one step forward. Mr. Whitaker has spent years helping this town, businesses, charities, scholarships, parks. That's impressive. It is. Then why does he need a police officer following me around? The smile disappeared completely. Mercer moved closer. You know what your problem is? No. You think because you inherited a house, you suddenly understand things that took other people decades to build. Maya noticed something important. He wasn't denying anything. Not the surveillance, not Whitaker, not the pressure. He simply assumed she had no power. The realization strengthened her. My aunt knew something, Maya said quietly. Mercer's expression hardened. Careful. She kept records. Everyone keeps records. She thought someone was afraid of them. For the first time, Mercer looked genuinely uncomfortable, only for a second, but Maya saw it. Then a new voice echoed across the storage facility. Officer Mercer. Both turned. An elderly man wearing a maintenance uniform approached from the far end of the corridor. He carried a toolbox and moved slowly. Everything okay over here? He asked. Mercer stepped back immediately. The change was noticeable, like a performer realizing an audience had arrived. Everything's fine, Mercer replied. The old man nodded. Good. Then he looked directly at Maya. Miss Carter, your aunt used to rent this unit. Nice woman. Maya smiled politely. She was. The man lingered, not leaving, not interrupting, just existing. And somehow that presence changed everything. Mercer seemed eager to go. Well, he said, adjusting his jacket, I should get moving. Maya nodded. Good idea. Before leaving, he looked at her one final time. Some roads lead places people regret visiting. And some roads expose things people regret hiding, Maya replied. The stare between them lasted several seconds. Then Mercer walked away. His pickup disappeared through the gate minutes later. The maintenance worker watched it leave. That man comes around here more than he should, he said. Maya turned toward him. You know him. Enough. The old man opened his toolbox and removed a folded piece of paper. Your aunt left this with me 3 years ago. Maya stared. She left something else. Told me only to hand it over if someone started asking questions after she was gone. He extended the paper. Maya unfolded it carefully. Inside was a handwritten list. 6 names. Richard Whitaker, George Talbot, Patricia Holloway, Daniel Mercer, and 2 names Maya didn't recognize. Beside every name was a date, meeting dates, phone call dates, property hearing dates. Everything connected, everything repeated. The pattern stretched back nearly 10 years. What is this? Maya whispered. The maintenance worker shrugged. No idea. Then he looked directly into her eyes. But your aunt spent a lot of time documenting those people. A cold feeling settled in Maya's chest, because one date immediately stood out. A meeting held 18 months earlier, the day after a neighboring homeowner had suddenly agreed to sell his property to Whitaker. The same homeowner who, according to local records, had fought the sale for nearly 7 years. Maya looked up. What happened to him? The old man hesitated. Then he answered, Nobody knows. The words hung in the air. Nobody knows. The man sold his house, moved away, and apparently vanished. As Maya stared at the list of names and dates, she realized something terrifying. Her aunt hadn't merely been collecting evidence, she had been tracking a pattern. And somewhere inside that pattern was the reason people kept disappearing from Whitaker's path. Maya drove back to Birchwood Estates with the list folded carefully inside her purse. The names and dates refused to leave her mind. Richard Whitaker, George Talbot, Patricia Holloway, Daniel Mercer, and 2 others she had never heard of. Each appeared repeatedly over nearly a decade. Each appeared shortly before a property changed hands. The pattern felt too precise to be coincidence. By the time she pulled into her driveway, the afternoon sky had darkened again. Across the street, Whitaker stood beside a landscaping crew, speaking confidently while workers trimmed hedges. He looked perfectly ordinary. That bothered Maya more than anything. Dangerous people rarely looked dangerous. They looked respectable, successful, trusted. Her phone rang. The screen displayed an unfamiliar Chicago number. Hello? Miss Carter? The voice belonged to a woman. My name is Laura Bennett. Ruth Bennett gave me your number. Maya recognized the surname immediately. Ruth's daughter. Yes, my mother told me what's happening. I think you need to see something. Maya listened carefully. Laura worked as an investigative journalist for a regional newspaper. 5 years earlier, she had started researching land acquisitions connected to several suburban development projects. One project kept appearing: the Birchwood expansion proposal. Every time I got close, Laura said, people stopped talking. Because they were afraid. That's part of it. A pause followed, and because witnesses kept disappearing. The words sent a chill through Maya. What do you mean, disappearing? Moving suddenly, changing numbers, refusing interviews, selling properties they swore they'd never sell. Maya remembered the missing homeowner from the list. Did anyone ever investigate? Not officially. There wasn't enough proof, just patterns. Patterns. The same word Aunt Evelyn seemed to have spent years following. Laura continued, there's one person you should meet. Who? Frank Sullivan. Maya grabbed a pen. Who's that? Former city planner, retired now. He opposed Whitaker's access road proposal years ago. Why? Because the numbers didn't make sense. And? 3 months later, he resigned. Voluntarily? Laura laughed softly. That's what the press release said. Before ending the call, Laura provided an address outside Springfield. If anyone knows what your aunt was tracking, it's him. That evening, Maya sat at the kitchen table reviewing Evelyn's binder again. The more she studied it, the stranger everything became. Dozens of homeowners had resisted selling. Most eventually gave in. Several received HOA violations beforehand. Others suddenly faced zoning disputes. A few experienced legal problems that appeared out of nowhere. Different methods, same outcome. Whitaker always got the land. At 7 o'clock, another envelope arrived. This one was hand-delivered. Inside was a formal notice. Special Homeowners Association hearing. Attendance required. Thursday, 7 p.m. Subject, property ownership review and community conduct assessment. At the bottom appeared Richard Whitaker's signature. Maya laughed despite herself. The timing was obvious. Pressure was escalating. Someone wanted her distracted. Someone wanted her worried about HOA hearings instead of hidden records. As darkness settled outside, headlights swept briefly across her living room wall. A vehicle slowed near the curb, then continued. 10 minutes later, another vehicle did the same, then another. Maya switched off the lights and stood near the window, watching, waiting, studying. Eventually, she recognized one of the vehicles. Officer Mercer's patrol car. He drove slowly past the house, twice, without stopping, without reason. The message was obvious. We're watching. Maya pulled the curtains closed. Then she returned to the kitchen table and opened Aunt Evelyn's handwritten letter again. One sentence suddenly stood out. Follow the people, not the paperwork. For the first time, Maya understood what her aunt meant. The documents explained the scheme. The people explained the motive. And somewhere among those names was the reason Whitaker seemed terrified of losing a single house. Just before midnight, her phone vibrated. A text message from an unknown number appeared. Leave tomorrow morning, drive to Springfield. Meet Frank Sullivan. Come alone. The message contained no signature, but attached beneath it was a photograph, a recent photograph. Taken through Maya's front window, someone had been standing outside her house, watching her, and they wanted her to know it. Maya barely slept. The photograph attached to the anonymous text remained open on her phone long after midnight. Someone had taken it from outside her house. The angle showed her kitchen table, the binder, the ownership documents, even Aunt Evelyn's framed photograph. Whoever sent the message had been close enough to see everything, and they wanted her to understand exactly how vulnerable she was. At dawn, Maya packed a canvas bag, locked the house, and started the drive toward Springfield. She told no one except Ruth Bennett. Not because she distrusted others, because she no longer knew who could be trusted. The farther she drove from Birchwood Estates, the lighter she felt. The neighborhood had become a pressure chamber. Every smile carried suspicion, every conversation felt rehearsed, every coincidence looked intentional. 3 hours later, she arrived at a modest brick ranch house on the outskirts of Springfield. A faded mailbox displayed the name Sullivan. Frank Sullivan answered the door himself. He appeared older than Maya expected. Mid-70s, silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses, the posture of a man who had spent decades studying maps and regulations. But his eyes changed the moment she introduced herself. Evelyn Carter's niece. Yes. He stepped aside immediately. Come in. And the walls of his study were covered with city plans, zoning maps, and framed newspaper articles. One photograph showed Sullivan standing beside a younger Evelyn Carter at a community meeting nearly 15 years earlier. Maya noticed it instantly. You knew my aunt well. Sullivan nodded, better than most people did. They sat across from one another. For several moments, neither spoke. Then Sullivan leaned forward. How much do you know? Enough to understand Richard Whitaker wants my property. That isn't enough. The answer came quickly, almost urgently. Then tell me the rest. Sullivan removed a file from his desk. Inside were maps nearly identical to the ones Maya had discovered in the storage unit. But these included something new. Several parcels highlighted in red, including Aunt Evelyn's property. This isn't about one road, Sullivan said. Then what is it about? Control. He tapped the map. 20 years ago, a transportation corridor was proposed through this region. Most people ignored it because development was decades away. Maya studied the markings. And now? Now the corridor is worth hundreds of millions. Her stomach tightened. You're serious? Very. Sullivan opened another folder. Inside were property acquisition records. Whitaker's companies had quietly purchased dozens of parcels over 15 years. Not randomly, strategically. Every purchase moved him closer to controlling the future corridor. Your aunt figured it out before anyone else, Sullivan said. Maya looked up. How? Because she paid attention. The answer sounded familiar, very familiar. Sullivan smiled sadly. Evelyn noticed that people who opposed Whitaker suddenly faced problems. Fines, legal disputes, investigations, community pressure. The same thing happening now. Exactly. He removed a final document, a resignation letter, signed by Frank Sullivan. I didn't retire voluntarily, he admitted. What happened? I refused to approve a zoning adjustment Whitaker needed. Then, within 6 months, I was accused of misconduct. Maya stared. Was it true? Not remotely. The bitterness in his voice answered before the words did. They destroyed my reputation anyway. The room fell silent. Then Sullivan spoke again. Your aunt never stopped fighting. She never told me any of this. Because she knew you'd come running back to help. Maya lowered her eyes. That sounded exactly like Evelyn, protecting others even when it cost her. Suddenly, Sullivan's expression changed. He stood and walked toward the front window. That's strange. What? That black SUV. Maya joined him. Across the street, a dark SUV sat parked beneath a tree. The engine was running. No one got out, no one moved, just waiting, watching. Sullivan's voice dropped. It wasn't there an hour ago. Maya's pulse accelerated. She had seen a similar vehicle before, near Birchwood Estates, near the storage facility, near Whitaker's office. The same model, the same dark windows, the same silence. Sullivan looked at her. Did anyone know you were coming? Only one person. Before either could say another word, Maya's phone vibrated. A new message appeared. It contained only 7 words. You're asking questions in the wrong town. Then another message arrived. This one included a photograph, not of Maya, not of the house. A photograph of Frank Sullivan standing beside his mailbox, taken less than 5 minutes earlier. Someone wasn't just following Maya anymore. Someone was tracking everyone she spoke to. Frank Sullivan locked his front door while Maya stood beside the living room window, watching the black SUV across the street. Neither of them spoke for several seconds. The vehicle remained motionless. Its engine idled quietly. Its windows revealed nothing. But the message was unmistakable. Someone wanted them to know they were being watched. This isn't random anymore, Maya said. Sullivan nodded. It never was. Another vibration came from her phone. No number, no signature. Just a single sentence. Go home, Maya, before someone else pays the price. She showed the message to Sullivan. His jaw tightened. That's new. You mean they've threatened people before? Not directly. Not like this. He walked toward a bookshelf and removed a worn folder. Inside were newspaper clippings dating back nearly 20 years. Maya flipped through them carefully. Most covered zoning disputes, development hearings, and property acquisitions. Then one article stopped her. A photograph showed a smiling man standing beside Richard Whitaker during a ribbon-cutting ceremony. The headline read, "Community leader missing after sudden relocation." Who was he? Maya asked. Thomas Grayson, the homeowner from the list. Yes. Sullivan looked troubled. He refused to sell for almost 8 years. Then one day he agreed. 2 weeks later he vanished. No investigation? Officially he moved to Arizona. And unofficially? Sullivan sighed. Nobody ever heard from him again. The room grew quiet. Maya studied the photograph. Grayson looked healthy, confident, not like someone preparing to disappear. My aunt suspected something happened to him. She wasn't the only one. Before Maya could respond, Sullivan's landline rang. The sound startled both of them. Almost nobody used landlines anymore. Sullivan hesitated before answering. Hello? Silence. Then his face drained of color. Who is this? More silence. A moment later, he slowly lowered the receiver. What happened? Maya asked. Someone was breathing into the phone. The answer sounded ridiculous. Yet the fear in Sullivan's eyes was real. He looked toward the SUV again. You need to leave. What? Now. Frank. Listen to me. His voice carried a firmness she had not heard before. I've spent 15 years watching people underestimate Whitaker. Every one of them believed the same thing. They thought the pressure would stop once they uncovered the truth. And the pressure always got worse. Maya knew he was right, because the closer she moved toward answers, the more aggressive the response became. The HOA hearing, the surveillance, the threats, the anonymous messages. Everything was escalating. She gathered her notes and prepared to leave. Before reaching the door, Sullivan handed her a sealed envelope. What's this? Insurance. Against what? The possibility that I don't get another chance to explain. Maya stared at him. You're serious? Very. The drive back toward Birchwood Estates felt longer than the trip out. Twice she noticed vehicles following her. Once they disappeared, then reappeared 20 miles later. Maybe coincidence, maybe not. By the time she entered the neighborhood, darkness had settled across the streets. Porch lights glowed softly. Families sat down to dinner. Children rode bicycles near cul-de-sacs. The community looked normal, comfortable, safe. The illusion almost worked. Then Maya noticed police lights. Red and blue reflections flashed near her house. Her pulse quickened. 3 patrol cars blocked the street. Neighbors gathered along sidewalks. Officer Mercer stood near her front lawn, speaking with Richard Whitaker. Both turned when her vehicle approached. Maya parked immediately. What's going on? She demanded. Mercer folded his arms. Interesting question. Answer it. Whitaker stepped forward. A resident filed a complaint. About what? Mercer pointed toward her front porch. Possible evidence tampering. Maya froze. What? Witnesses claim you've been removing documents from private storage locations connected to ongoing community investigations. The accusation was absurd. That was exactly why it frightened her. Mercer continued. We'll need to inspect the property. Do you have a warrant? His expression tightened. Not yet. Then you're not entering my house. Several neighbors exchanged nervous glances. Whitaker smiled calmly. Miss Carter, refusing cooperation only creates suspicion. And manufacturing suspicion seems to be your specialty. For a brief second, anger flashed across his face. Then it disappeared. Mercer stepped closer. Careful. No, Maya replied. You be careful. The silence that followed felt electric. People were watching, listening, remembering. Something had changed since the HOA meeting. Whitaker sensed it too. His confidence seemed thinner now, more fragile. As the officers finally withdrew, Maya entered the house and locked the door. Only then did she open Sullivan's envelope. Inside was a flash drive and a handwritten note. The note contained only one sentence. If anything happens to me, the proof is on this drive. Maya stared at the words, then her phone rang. Ruth Bennett's name appeared on the screen. She answered immediately. Ruth was crying. "Maya," she whispered. "Frank Sullivan's house just caught fire." For several seconds, Maya could not speak. The words echoed inside her head. Frank Sullivan's house just caught fire. "Is he okay?" she finally asked. Ruth's breathing shook through the phone. "Nobody knows yet. Fire trucks just arrived." Maya grabbed her keys instantly. "I'm leaving now." "Maya, be careful." The line disconnected. Within minutes, she was back on the highway. Dark clouds covered the sky. A cold wind pushed against her windshield. The entire drive felt unreal. Frank had been alive and well only hours earlier. Now his home was burning. The timing was impossible to ignore. By the time Maya reached Springfield, emergency lights painted the night red and blue. Firefighters moved through thick smoke. Neighbors gathered behind barricades. The small brick house looked devastated. Half the roof had collapsed. The front windows were gone. Maya parked and ran toward the crowd. A firefighter stopped her. "You can't go through. Frank Sullivan lives here." The man's expression softened. "Not anymore." Maya felt her stomach drop. "What does that mean?" "House was empty when we arrived." "Empty?" "No one inside." Relief flooded through her. Then confusion replaced it. If Frank wasn't inside, where was he? A voice answered the question. "He's alive." Maya turned. A woman in a dark coat approached from the crowd. She appeared to be in her early 50s, sharp eyes, calm posture, professional. "Who are you?" Maya asked. The woman handed her a business card. "Special Agent Rebecca Lawson, Federal Bureau of Investigation." Maya stared. "FBI?" "Mr. Sullivan contacted us 42 minutes before the fire." "Why?" "Because he believed someone intended to destroy evidence." Maya's heart raced. "Where is he now?" "Safe." The answer sounded deliberate, not detailed. Just enough. Agent Lawson studied Maya carefully. "You inherited Evelyn Carter's property." It wasn't a question. "Yes." "Then you're probably in more danger than you realize." The honesty startled her. Most people softened warnings. Lawson didn't. They moved away from the crowd and spoke beside an unmarked vehicle. The agent opened a tablet. Several photographs appeared. Whitaker, Talbot, Mercer. Others Maya didn't recognize. "We've been monitoring pieces of this situation for years," Lawson said. "Then why hasn't anyone stopped it?" Lawson looked toward the burning house. "Because influence is difficult to prosecute." "You mean corruption?" "I mean corruption that hides behind legal paperwork." Maya understood immediately. Every fine, every hearing, every complaint. Each action appeared legal by itself. Together they formed something far darker. Lawson enlarged a photograph. It showed Richard Whitaker attending a fundraiser beside judges, city officials, and business leaders. Whitaker built relationships everywhere, Lawson explained. Police departments, political campaigns, development boards, community organizations. So nobody challenged him. Most people couldn't. The fire behind them crackled loudly. Maya remembered the flash drive still hidden inside her purse. "I have something." Lawson's eyes narrowed. "What kind of something?" Maya handed over the drive. "Frank gave it to me today." The agent examined it carefully. "Did he tell you what was on it?" "No." "Good." "Good?" "If you don't know, nobody can force you to lie about it." The answer made Maya uneasy, very uneasy. An hour later, they sat inside the FBI vehicle while specialists reviewed the contents. No one spoke. No one smiled. Then a young analyst turned around from a laptop. His face looked pale. "Agent Lawson." "What?" "You need to see this." Lawson moved immediately. Maya followed. The screen displayed dozens of files, emails, financial records, property transactions, recorded conversations, and one folder labeled Jury Coordination. The words froze everyone inside the vehicle. Lawson opened it. Several names appeared. Dates, payments, meeting notes, potential jurors, community leaders, recommendations, influence assessments. Maya felt sick. He's fixing juries. Nobody answered, because the evidence answered for them. Then another file opened. Project Corridor Master Plan. The estimated future value exceeded $600 million. Silence filled the vehicle. Everything suddenly made sense. The pressure, the intimidation, the disappearing homeowners, the obsession with Evelyn's property, the corruption. The road wasn't worth millions, it was worth a fortune. And Richard Whitaker had spent nearly 20 years building an empire around it. Agent Lawson looked at Maya. For the first time, genuine concern appeared in her expression. He's not protecting a development project anymore. Then what is he protecting? Lawson glanced back at the screen, his entire life. At that exact moment, Maya's phone vibrated, a security camera alert from her house. Someone was standing on her front porch. The image loaded slowly. When it finally appeared, every person in the vehicle fell silent. Officer Daniel Mercer was holding a gasoline can. The image on Maya's phone felt unreal. Officer Daniel Mercer stood on her front porch beneath the glow of a security light. In one hand, he carried a gasoline can. In the other was a flashlight. Nobody inside the FBI vehicle spoke. The silence lasted only seconds. Then Agent Rebecca Lawson grabbed her phone. "Get a team moving now," she ordered. The command snapped everyone into motion. Agents began making calls. Vehicles started, laptops closed. The investigation had suddenly become something much larger, much more urgent. Maya watched the live camera feed. Mercer looked around carefully before stepping toward the side of the house. He believed he was alone. He believed nobody was watching. For the first time since Birchwood Estates entered her life, Maya saw fear in a different form. Not her fear, his. People only destroy evidence when they know the truth is catching them. "Can you save the footage?" Maya asked. Lawson looked almost offended. "We're saving everything." The convoy left Springfield immediately. Rain began falling halfway through the drive. Lightning flashed across the horizon. The storm seemed determined to witness whatever happened next. Maya sat beside Lawson in the lead vehicle. Neither woman spoke much. The evidence from Sullivan's flash drive had changed everything. The jury manipulation files alone could destroy careers. The financial records could trigger federal indictments. The recorded conversations were worse, far worse. One recording captured George Talbot discussing pressure tactics against homeowners. Another contained Patricia Holloway explaining how HOA complaints could be used to force compliance. A third featured Mercer himself, laughing, mocking residents, promising problems for anyone who challenged Whitaker. And through all of it, one voice appeared repeatedly. Richard Whitaker, calm, polished, confident, the voice of a man who believed consequences belonged to other people. As they approached Birchwood Estates, flashing emergency lights appeared in the distance. Lawson frowned. "That's not our team." Maya's stomach tightened. The neighborhood entrance came into view. Police cruisers lined the street, fire trucks blocked several intersections. Residents stood outside despite the rain. Something had happened, something big. The convoy stopped. An FBI agent hurried toward Lawson. "We've got a situation." "Report." "Mercer never made it into the house." Maya exhaled. "Thank God." "What stopped him?" Lawson asked. The agent pointed toward a nearby ambulance. "Arthur Lane." Maya turned immediately. The elderly Navy veteran sat inside the rear of an ambulance while paramedics treated a cut above his eye. His clothes were soaked, his hands trembled, but he was alive. Maya ran toward him. "Arthur," he smiled weakly. "Thought I'd find you eventually. What happened?" Arthur glanced toward Whitaker's house. "I couldn't sleep. Saw Mercer walking around your property carrying that gas can." His expression hardened, so I followed him. Maya listened in disbelief. "You confronted him? Told him to leave?" Arthur laughed painfully. He didn't appreciate the suggestion. The argument escalated. Mercer shoved him. Arthur fell. Neighbors came outside. Lights turned on. Curtains opened. Witnesses appeared. The moment Mercer realized people were watching, he abandoned the gasoline can and fled. Unfortunately for him, several residents recorded everything, including the can, including the confrontation, including his face. Maya felt something shift. The spell was breaking. People who had spent years remaining silent had finally seen too much. Lawson approached carrying her phone. "We have a federal warrant." Maya stared. "For who?" "Whitaker, Mercer, Talbot. 2 county officials, 1 developer, 3 shell company operators." Arthur let out a low whistle. That's a busy morning. The neighborhood suddenly erupted with movement. Federal vehicles rolled toward Whitaker's home. Agents approached the front entrance. Residents gathered along sidewalks. Nobody looked away. Nobody went inside. For years, Richard Whitaker had controlled the story. Tonight, everyone wanted to see how it ended. Maya stood beneath the rain, watching agents knock on the front door. Seconds later, Whitaker appeared. Even from a distance, she could see his confidence. His posture remained perfect, his expression remained calm. Until he noticed the number of agents. Until he noticed Lawson. Until he noticed Maya. Then something changed. Not panic. Recognition. The realization that his control was gone. The front door opened wider. Agents entered. The crowd remained silent. 5 minutes later, they emerged carrying boxes. Computers, files, documents, evidence. The empire was coming apart, but the biggest surprise arrived 20 minutes later. An agent exited the house carrying a metal lockbox. Inside were old property records, personal letters, and a photograph of Evelyn Carter, taken secretly years ago. Maya stared at it. Whitaker hadn't merely wanted the property. He had been watching her aunt, studying her, tracking her resistance. Lawson looked at the photograph, then at Maya. This case just became much bigger than development fraud. The rain continued falling. Across the street, Richard Whitaker was escorted toward a federal vehicle. For the first time, he looked afraid. But before agents placed him inside, he turned toward Maya and smiled. A small smile, strange, almost relieved. Then he said something that nobody expected. "You still haven't found the real reason your aunt refused to sell." The rain slowed to a mist as federal agents escorted Richard Whitaker toward the waiting vehicle. His final words lingered in Maya's mind. "You still haven't found the real reason your aunt refused to sell." For a moment she wondered if it was another manipulation, another attempt to maintain control. Then Agent Rebecca Lawson approached carrying the metal lockbox recovered from Whitaker's home. "We found something," she said. Maya followed her to an FBI command vehicle parked nearby. Inside, agents were cataloging evidence, computers, financial records, property agreements, the contents of an empire built on intimidation. Lawson opened the lockbox. Most of the documents related to land acquisitions. Then Maya noticed a smaller envelope. Across the front, written in neat handwriting, were 2 words. Evelyn Carter. Her heart skipped. "What is that?" Lawson handed it to her. The envelope contained letters, dozens of them, some written by Evelyn, others written by residents of Birchwood Estates, the oldest dated back nearly 20 years. Maya began reading. The truth emerged slowly. Then, all at once, the access road had never been the beginning. It had been the consequence. Years earlier, before Whitaker became powerful, a group of residents discovered irregularities involving public land transfers and development contracts. Several people wanted to expose them. Most backed away. One did not. Evelyn Carter. She documented everything, recorded conversations, saved letters, collected evidence, not because she wanted attention, because she believed ordinary people deserved protection. The farther Maya read, the clearer the picture became. Whitaker's hatred wasn't rooted in money alone. Money came later. The real wound was personal. Evelyn had refused to be intimidated. She had embarrassed him publicly years before his rise to power. She had blocked projects, questioned contracts, exposed lies. Most importantly, she had forced him to spend years navigating around one obstacle, her. Lawson sat quietly while Maya finished reading. "She knew exactly who he was," Maya whispered. "Yes." "And she stayed anyway." "Yes." Tears filled Maya's eyes, not from sadness, from understanding. All those years people had seen Evelyn as a retired nurse living alone in a small brick house. They never realized she had spent decades protecting a community that often failed to protect her. 3 months later, federal indictments shook the region. Richard Whitaker faced charges involving conspiracy, fraud, witness intimidation, corruption, obstruction of justice, and jury tampering. George Talbot accepted a plea agreement. Patricia Holloway resigned. Daniel Mercer lost his badge and later faced criminal prosecution. Several officials connected to the development scheme were removed from their positions. The investigation expanded far beyond Birchwood Estates. News outlets covered the story nationwide, yet Maya avoided most interviews. She preferred quieter victories. On a warm autumn afternoon, she stood in Aunt Evelyn's backyard, planting tomatoes where an old garden once grew. The neighborhood felt different now. Not perfect, but honest. Arthur Lane often stopped by with coffee. Ruth Bennett brought casseroles and neighborhood gossip. Several residents who had remained silent finally apologized. Some cried. Others simply thanked her. Maya accepted what felt sincere. She let the rest go. Healing, she learned, required honesty more than punishment. One evening, she sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and gold. A gentle breeze moved through the trees. The same neighborhood that once watched from behind curtains now waved openly from sidewalks. Children rode bicycles down the street. Neighbors talked across fences. Life moved forward. Before going inside, Maya carried one final item to the garden, a framed photograph of Aunt Evelyn in her nursing uniform. She placed it briefly beside the tomatoes. "You were right," Maya said softly. The evening remained quiet, peaceful, as if the house itself had been waiting years to hear those words. She smiled and looked toward the horizon. The battle had never been about property. It had never been about roads. It had never even been about money. It was about courage. The courage to stand firm when powerful people expected surrender. The courage to tell the truth when silence felt safer. And the courage to leave a better future for people you might never meet. The sun disappeared beyond the trees. Lights slowly appeared throughout Birchwood Estates. For the first time since arriving, Maya felt completely at home. Not because she owned the house, because she finally understood what her aunt had protected. It wasn't a piece of land, it was a principle. And some principles are worth defending for a lifetime. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and share this video.